So is Agile scalable? Stick around tonight and we're going to break that down. Good evening, Agile acquisition enthusiasts. Welcome back to the Underground Digital Tiki Bar. It's Friday night, and that means it's time for another episode of Agile Acquisitions and Alcohol. Cheers. Okay, so on tonight's episode, we're going to talk about Scalable Agile. And I was on a panel the other day. It was a webinar, AGL, and that question came up, and kind of ran out of time and didn't really get to unpack it as much as I'd like. But it comes up all the time. Is Agile scalable? I mean, Agile's just meant for building websites, right? Like, we're just gonna create like a front end cool interface with a team of 5 people and we're done, right? That's what Agile is. Absolutely not. But the better question, and this actually came up, was, do you actually need to scale your team, or do you need to descale your problem set? This is the way to think about it. I was actually in a meeting one time, and the stakeholders around the table were talking about this big problem they were trying to solve, and I was there to kind of advise them or consult on sort of an approach. And I recall them saying, this program is going to be $500 million over the next 5 years or 10 years, I think. And this was just running through sort of the background, and I said, well, excuse me, but like back of the napkin numbers, again, that's like 400 FTEs a year. And they kind of all looked at each other and they're like, oh, well, actually, I think it's more than that. And that was like the eye-opening moment for me in this whole world of transforming the government to this modern development. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, even if it's 400 people, if half of them are actually, could you imagine 200 people developing on a single problem at the same time? I mean, it's almost like chaos, like mass chaos. And, this is really what we're getting at. I mean, certainly you have approaches for scaling Agile. I mean, you have SAVE, the Scaled Agile framework. I mean, that's what it's based on. But the real idea of Agile is that you're building exactly what you need right now. I mean, the main concept here is sort of prioritize and solve, and then determine the next necessary problem to solve, right? So, I mean, you can't solve all the problems at the same time. And it doesn't matter if you're SpaceX or Tesla or Google or the federal government. If you're trying to solve a problem, you need to solve the problem at hand. I mean, forward thinking, of course, but you need to prioritize what you're doing. So maybe that's not one team, maybe it's a few teams building, in different areas, and you have a product manager overseeing various product owners that are implementing product lines into an overarching solution. Fine. But when you get to the point where you have, we have 30 different teams, they're all building, if they're building for the same problem, chances are you're not doing it right. And so where this often will come up is, well, we're building a full system. And, this system has hardware, and it's got software, and it's got, hosting requirements and all these things. We're like, we're going to need all these people. And you might need people to do these various things. But you don't need to do it all in the way you would do it in sort of this big government waterfall approach. And while we're talking about that, let's think about why the numbers on government contracts are typically so high. When we look at government contracts, it seems natural to say, well, there's 200 people working on this program. But if you start to peel back what the 200 people are doing, they're not all building or writing code for a particular solution. I mean, government contracts are riddled with what we call procedurals or contract deliverables that require just an insane amount of man hours to generate, earned value management reporting, PowerPoint slides, attend meetings that are, 3 hours long every week. You have all this just overhead of labor that's necessary to actually do the work. When you actually peel all that back, the people that are actually working on the project themselves is a significantly smaller number. And when you look at waterfall, yeah, you can have lots of people building because you have sort of this static state. So I can build on this end while you build on this end because nothing's going to change until we know where our pieces will come together. But we know that the whole reason why agile or iterative development has become so important in our endeavors is because technology changed so rapidly that we know we have accepted this, right? We know we can't predict with such fidelity to build in separate components that far apart and pull them together because nothing will change, because we know they absolutely will change. So instead, you have to focus on the really small piece, absolutely envisioning the full architecture, but focusing your resources, prioritize, make a decision, move, prioritize, make a decision, and move. That's agile. Agile is nimble, it's fast, because it's not huge programs of people working all at one time to some fixed point in the future. So there you have it. My take on scaling agile. Can it be scaled? Absolutely, it can be scaled. The question is, how much should we scale it? And I think we have to take a really deep look into like what we're doing and where we're trying to get to before we grow the teams. And if you're dealing with more than, 3 teams at a time, you need to take a real hard look about where you're going and whether you have the capability to effectively manage that. Okay, so that is scaling agile. That's my soapbox. I'm off it now. What's really important to me is that you keep watching these videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe. That way you'll know whenever new videos come out. Send comments or questions. I'm happy to talk about whatever you're interested in. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Most importantly, please keep innovating. And until next week, cheers.